Hello guys, today I'm just making a new video. This is a video based on the concepts of quadratic graphs. I know many of you guys have these concepts coming up for exams, so hopefully this video has helped you all to understand these type of concepts. If you guys have enjoyed the video, please do like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It really helps a lot. And yeah, let's start with the video. Alright, so this whole questions walkthrough is for the concept of quadratic graphs. Now, when dealing with quadratic graphs, the most important thing that you guys do have to know is the quadratic equation. Now, the quadratic equation here is y equals x squared plus bx plus c. This is the quadratic equation, how you can say it in that way, okay? And then the other most important thing about quadratic graphs that you have to remember is about turning points. Now, a turning point is like it's a point at which the graph turns around. So you can make out from the graph itself where the graph is turning around. That is going to be your turning point, okay? So in this case, just for a briefing, just for a good briefing about this concept of quadratic graphs and equations, is you can see that there's an equation y equals x squared minus 2x minus 3, okay? So now here, the a, b, and c constant values are just going to be the coefficients of your variables. So what I mean by is it's going to be the 1 here, -2, and -3. These are going to be your a, b, and c values, since a, b, and c are all constants. So here a is equivalent to 1, b is equivalent to -2, c equals -3, okay? Let me just increase the brightness here. So a equals 1, b equals -2, c equals -3, okay? So a is 1, b is -2, c is -3. These are the constant values for a, b, and c. And remember, y equals x squared plus bx plus c is a quadratic equation format. So all the equations in terms of everything x raised to the power of 2 are all quadratic equations, and they must be written in this format, okay? So now here you can see that there's a nice little graph here, okay? You can see that there's a graph shown here, and from this graph we can see that there's a y-axis and the x-axis, and the parabolic curve is your quadratic equation. So this is y equals x squared minus 2x minus 3. This is going to be the parabolic curve, or the graph, how it's drawn, how this curve is drawn for this equation, okay? Now, the question is, write down the turning points of the graph y equals x squared minus 2x minus 3. Now, remember, turning point is also known as the vertex of the graph, okay? This is also known as the vertex of the graph. And here's some brief information on what turning points could look like. First of all, the turning points could be either called a minimum turning point. This is where the graph is more of a U-shaped parabolic curve, and the maximum turning point is when the curve is inverted. So that's how we know where the turning points are, okay? And you can usually see that there's a symmetry between the graphs, and that should also show you where the turning point could be as well. So on this graph, the turning point is directly shown to be here. So you can see that this is where the graph turns around. This is the point at which the graph turns around, or the line turns around. And now we have to look for the x coordinates here. Okay, we're going to be looking for the x value here. Now, one good tip is, if 2 units, right? If it takes 10 squares to reach 2, we know that 2 divided by 10, or in this case, 2 divided by 10 is going to give you 0.2. So which it means that it takes 1 square gives you the value of 0.2. So that means 5 squares would give you 5 times 0.2, which will give you the value of 1. So we know that this value here is going to be 1. So that means the point here, coordinates here, is going to be 1, -4. We're using the format of x, y, okay? So here x is 1, as we can see on the graph as we look, and the y value is going to be -4. This is going to be your answer for the turning points of the graph. turning points of the graph. It's going to be 1, comma, -4. This is going to be for 1 mark, okay? Now, use the graph to find the roots of the equation. Now, remember, roots of the equation, these means the solutions. They're talking about the solutions of the equations. Usually, these are the values for x, which we have to find. Now, there are 2 ways of finding this. One is from the parabolic or the quadratic equation in this case, or usually when the graph is not given to you, we can find the solutions of the equation, also known as the roots of the equations, from the equation itself by using a method called factorizing. So we're going to factorize the quadratic expression equation in this case to get the x values, and this is only used when the graph is not provided. But since the graph is provided here, we can find out the roots of the solutions of the equation in this case. So since the graph is provided to us, how we're going to find out the roots of the equation is we're going to be looking at the x-intercepts of the graph. Okay, we're going to be looking at the x-intercepts of the graph. Now, what I mean by this is that we're going to be looking for where the parabolic curve touches the x-axis. So here we can see that the parabolic curve, it touches the x-axis at this point, at 2 distinct points. This is where they intersect. The parabolic curve intersects the x-axis line. Those are going to be your solutions or your roots of the quadratic expression equation in this case. So we're going to be looking at, this is going to be -1, and remember the y coordinates here are all 0. -1, 0, 3, 0. Now remember, you only write -1, 0, and 3, 0 only when they ask you for the coordinates of the solutions. But since they have asked us to find the roots, we're just going to list only the x coordinates. So here x would be equivalent to -1, and here x equals +3. So the answers here is going to be x equals -1 and x equals +3. How you're going to write it down is, you're going to just put that and word there. So you're going to put the and word there. So it's going to be -1 and 3. This is going to be your roots of the equation. Now I'm going to show you how to do this without using the graph. Now in case if they don't give you guys the graph, how you're going to solve it is you're going to factorize. You're going to factorize this quadratic expression. Now how you're going to do that is you're going to write down your expression here. X squared minus 2x minus 3 equals 0. And we're going to be looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give you -3. Since we multiplied the coefficients of these 2 values here, give you -3, and 2 numbers that add to give you this middle part here, okay, -2. Now the only 2 possible values that can satisfy this criteria is -1 and 3. So it's more of trial and error method. So you're just going to list down all the values or numbers in this case that multiply to give you -3, that multiply together to give you -3, and that add together to give you -2. So -1 times 3 gives you -3. -1 plus 3 gives you -2. So that's how they satisfy. And when you factorize, you're going to inverse these signs. So it's going to be x plus 2 brackets x. We're not going to use the values of let's say -2 and -3. These are just to show you the satisfaction of this criteria. What we're going to do is, I'm just going to write it here so we have more space for working, is what we're going to do is we're going to have x brackets, and we're going to use the numbers that we just found, -1 and +3. These are the values that you're going to inverse. So it's going to be +1 and -3, all equivalent to 0. These are the ways. This is a way to find out the x-intercepts. So you know that x plus 1 equals 0. We know x minus 3 equals 0. X equals -1. X equals +3. So we can find out the x values, which we have found to be similar as the ones which we found on the curve or on the graph itself. X equals -1 and x equals 3. Okay. Let's move on to the next question. Question 2 is, here's the graph of y equals 2x plus 6 minus x squared. Now you can see that the equation is a bit rearranged in a different format. Remember, quadratic equations always have this kind of format: y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. This is the format of the quadratic equation. So you're going to rearrange this. I know this is not necessary, but just do it in case it might be helpful. Okay, so just going to rearrange it as minus x squared plus 2x plus 6. Okay, this is going to be your rearranged form of the quadratic expression in this case. Now, since here we can see that the parabolic curve, we can see the graph is given to us, and the parabolic curve is in an inverted form, and it's like an inverted U. So that's how the graph is looking like. Write down the turning point. So here, this is going to be the maximum turning point. So it's going to be somewhere around here. The x value here in this case is 1, and the y value is roughly 7. So it's 1 comma 7. This is going to be your turning points. In this case, it's going to be 1 comma 7. Since we're looking for the vertex of the graph, remember, turning point is also known as the vertex of the parabolic graph. Okay, whenever they ask you. Okay, actually, they're not going to ask like what the turning point is specifically. It really depends on whether the question asks you or not. But just remember that turning point is the vertex of the quadratic graph in this case. Find the roots of the equation. This is just a trick. Okay. So this is just the same format. Is what they have done is it's y equals 2x plus 6 minus x squared. You're just going to take my negative x squared on the other side. It just gives you x squared equals 2x plus 6. It just means exactly the same thing. It's the same graph that you can use. So you're going to find out the roots of the equation here in this case. So it's going to be where the parabolic curve intersects the x-axis. So we can see it's here and here. Okay, so one way of doing this is, since we need to find out this value here, okay, we need to find out the most accurate form. Now, how we're going to do this is we're going to use the same concept. We know that 10 squares reach 2 units, right? 10 squares, it takes 10 squares to reach the value of 2. That's the right way of saying it. So it's 2 divided by 10 equals 0.2. So you're going to do 0.2 times 5, okay? Since there are 5 squares, we have to find out, since 1 square is equivalent to 0.2 units, or the value in this case. So it's 0.2 times 5. 0.2 times 5 is going to give you positive 1 in this case. So that's why we have written here as 1. So we know in order to find this value here, what we're going to be doing is we know that each square is 0.2, and here there are roughly, if you zoom in carefully, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. There are 8 squares, so it's going to be 8 times 0.2, which is going to give you the value of 1.6. So this is going to be your x value, 1.6 comma 0. And here, what we're going to do is it's how many squares? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. 8 squares. What you're going to do is you're going to do 2 plus 0.2 times 8. Okay, this is going to give you 2 plus 0.2 times 8 is 3.6. Now, this is just a way of writing this. I'm going to simplify this for you guys. We know that 1 square is 0.2, and here there are 8 squares. So what I've done is I've just done 8 times 0.2, and we're adding that with positive 2 here just to find out the value here. Okay, that's why it's 3.6. So this is going to be 3.6 comma 0. Okay, these are going to be your roots. This is very important, very easy actually, if you guys know how to do the coordinates thing. Okay, so you guys can solve it in any method you guys like. This is just one of the methods I use to find out the coordinates. So it's just going to be negative 1.6. Remember, they asked you to find the roots, not the coordinates. So only the x values in this case. Negative 1.6 and 3.6. This is going to be your answer, okay? Next part. Again, we can see that there's another graph, another U-shaped graph. Here's a graph. Find out the turning point. So now the turning point is at the bottom here, so it's going to be the minimum point here. And this is the same thing. It's going to be 1 comma negative 6. Remember, it's always in the format of x comma y. So your answer is going to be, sorry guys, it's not 1 comma negative 6, since this is on the negative side. It's going to be negative 1 comma negative 6. Sorry guys about that. So it's going to be negative 1 comma negative 6. They're asking us now to find out the roots of the equation. Now be careful. Actually, it is very important when they're giving you an equation in another rearranged form to look at it. Use the graph to find out the roots of the equation. Now remember, we have already been given the graph of y equals x squared plus 2x minus 5. Now the many misconceptions here is when people see the word roots, they immediately go for the x-intercepts. Like I said initially, that is how we do turning points. But we only do that when it's equivalent to y. Here, the y value has become positive 2. So it's a very different story to how we solve it now. We actually get a completely new quadratic equation. What I mean by this is if you take positive 2 to the left hand side, it just becomes x squared plus 2x minus 5 minus 2 equals 0. So it just becomes x squared plus 2x minus 5 minus 2. It becomes negative 7 equals 0. This is a completely different quadratic expression. So that means the graph of this would be completely different. But the graph given to us in the question is y equals x squared plus 2x minus 5. That's why I mentioned for you guys to know both methods. One to find out the x values or the x-intercepts of the roots without using the graph, and also when the graph is provided to you. Now this is a different case, how you're going to solve this. Since there's no other graph to draw this graph, you can either factorize this quadratic expression, but since the graph is provided, we're going to be solving it using another way of doing it on the graph itself. So what I mean by this is we consider each thing as an equation. Since the equal sign is given to us, we're going to consider each one separate. So it's going to be y equals x squared plus 2x minus 5. This is the graph given to us. And we're going to consider this as y equals 2. Okay? So these are two separate equations. And now we're going to draw y equals 2 on this graph. And wherever that intersects the parabolic equation, wherever y equals 2 intersects y equals x squared plus 2x minus 5, their intersection is going to be the roots of the equation. So y equals 2. This is going to be a horizontal line. Okay, so you can see that there's a y-axis and 2 is here. So what you're going to be drawing is a straight line here. You're going to be drawing a straight line. Okay, hopefully that's clear. This is going to be y equals 2. Okay, you're going to draw a straight line on the graph. Okay, straight line, horizontal, straight line, y equals 2. This is y equals 2. Now, this is where this is going to be your x-intercepts. Remember, it is not here. Okay, it's not here. This is inaccurate. Your x-intercepts for this question is going to be where the intersection of the parabolic equation and the line of y equals 2. This is going to be where your x-intercepts are going to be of this graph. It's going to be here and here. Now we're going to calculate the value. We know that this is going up by each value. Again, this is using negative 2, so we know that each square is 0.2. So it's going to be negative 4 minus 0.2. Okay, it's going to be, negative 4 minus 4 minus 0.2. It's going to be negative 3.8 when we're taking it to the left hand side. Okay, we can just take it as negative 4 plus 0.2. That should give you negative 3.8. So it's going to be your remember the y value here is 2 in this case, so it's negative 3.8 comma 2. Now the y value has changed. It's not 0. In other instances, we have seen in the other questions, we have taken y as 0. Okay, that's why we have found out the intersection with the x-axis. Okay, whereas in this case, remember, it is not with the x-axis. I think that something that should be clarified is when you have this kind of scenarios, you have to create two equations, draw one of the equations, and see their intersection points. So in this case, for this one, it's going to be as well 2 minus 0.2, which is going to give you the coordinates here, so the coordinates here is going to be 1.8 comma 2. Now remember, they're asking us to find out the roots only, not the coordinates. So we're just going to take the x values. We know x is equivalent to negative 3.8. X equals 1.8. Okay? So here in this case, So in this case, x is equivalent to negative 3.8, and x equals 1.8, and x equals 1.8. So we're just going to be writing it as negative 3.8 and 1.8. This is going to be your answer, okay, in this case. Complete the table of values for y equals x squared plus x minus 6. This is a very simple task to do. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be substituting all the x values into this y equation. So I'm just going to be giving an example. Is if you have x equals negative 3, it's y equals negative 3 squared plus negative 3 minus 6, okay? And you're going to put this in your calculator, and you should be getting the values for each one of them, okay? Remember to substitute the negative value in. So this is going to be 0. For the other one, it's going to be, let's say, negative 2 minus 6. It's going to be negative 4. Hopefully that's right. In this case, negative 4, negative 1. We're going to square negative 1 plus negative 1 minus 6 is negative 6. 1 square plus 1 minus 6 is going to be negative 4, and 3 square plus 3 minus 6 is going to be positive 6. Now that we have completed the table of values, now on the grid we have to draw the graph of y equals x squared plus x minus 6 for the values ranging from negative 3 to 3. Okay, so basically this is just plotting of points. Okay, so we're going to see the x values. Remember, it's always x comma y. So you're going to first plot negative 3 comma 0. So on the graph, negative 3 comma 0 is going to be here. Okay. Then your next task is to, okay, we're going to write down all the coordinates. Negative 2 comma negative 4, negative 1 comma negative 6, 0 comma negative 6, 1 comma negative 4, 2 comma 0, 3 comma 6. Plot the points. Negative 2 comma negative 4, it's here. Plot the point. Negative 1 comma negative 6. Plot the point, it's here. 0 comma negative 6. 0 comma negative 6, that's here. Hopefully, let me just zoom in. That's, yeah, it's somewhere here. 0 comma negative 6. 1 comma negative 4, that's here. 2 comma 0, that's here. 3 comma 6, that's gonna be here. Now we have to draw a parabola. Remember, the parabola curve should be really, it should be smooth. Okay, that's one way of saying it. It should be a smooth graph. So I'll just try to draw a smooth parabola curve. So remember to just draw a smooth curved line. Remember, it's a smooth curved line. Smooth curved line. Okay, so it should be smooth and it should be curved. So I'm just gonna try to draw a smooth curved line, hopefully, so you can see it. So we can draw a smooth curved line. Okay, this is not okay. Let me just try to draw a smooth curved line. It should go through all the points. Okay, so it's gonna curve like this, and it's gonna move, yeah, like there, a bit upwards and a bit there. It should touch all the points, so it should be somewhat like this, hopefully. But your hopefully the way you guys draw it should be more smoother. So it should be smooth and curved, and this is the way to draw the graph of y equals x squared plus x minus 6. You can draw it using a table of values of x and y. The values of x are given. You can just substitute them into the equation to find the values of y, and then you can plot the coordinates and you can draw a smooth curved line to just draw this equation. Now use the graph to estimate the solutions. See again, now they have given you, so we have to use, they've given you -2 in this case, so we have to separate them. Y equals x squared plus x minus 6, y equals -2. Now we have to draw the line of y equals -2. That's going to be here, y equals -2. Now here we can see that it is only intersecting, it is only intersecting at one point. So it's going to be here, the intersection of the y. Okay, by the way, also label the graph y equals x squared plus x minus 6. This is also very important that you do that. And the intersection point is going to be where these two lines meet, curves, where the curve and the line meets. This is going to be the intersection point. So it's somewhere roughly, calculating it, the point here is roughly 2.6, okay? So it's going to be 2.6. But however, when we look at the graph itself, we should recognize certain values here. Remember, this is not y equals +2. That was a trick right there, right? Sorry guys, it's not y equals +2. It's actually y equals -2. Should have drawn it on the other side. Sorry about that. So it's actually y equals -2. Here they intersect 2 points. So here we can see that there are 2 points of intersection. We're only looking for the x values here. So here this is roughly, if you do the proper calculation, remember the square 1 square equals, in this case, okay, let's actually do this properly. Okay, since I've drawn my curve like this, yeah, we know that 1 square is 1 divided by 10, right? 1 divided by 10 is 0.1. So using this, you can accurately find out the coordinates. So 1 square is equivalent to the value of 0.1. So here roughly it is 1.6, okay, if you do the calculation correctly, and here it's 1,6, 0, 1.6, 0. Here it is -2.6, 0. Remember, we're only finding out the solutions. Now here you can see that they didn't mention the word roots, but they did mention the word solutions. Remember, roots and solutions, they all mean the same thing. So we're going to find the values of x only, okay? Since those are the solutions, x equals -2.6 and x equals 1.6, -2.6 and 1.6. This is going to be your answer, okay? Okay, next one is the same repeat question, okay? Same style of question. What we're going to do is we're going to substitute all of them. So you should be getting 9, 3, -1, -3, -3, -1, 3. Just do check with the calculators if this is right. Just substitute them in the right format. And then we're going to be plotting the points. Remember, it's -2, -9, -1, -3, 0, -1, 1, -3, 2, -3, 3, -1, 4, 3, and remember this is in the format of x, y, okay? X, y, -2. Okay, now we're just going to be plotting the points here. So -2, the first point is -2 and 9. So we can see that the points have to be plotted here. So this is going to be a value here, -1, 3, -1, 3, it's here. 0, -1, the x value is 0. So that's somewhere here. 1, -3, that's somewhere here. Okay. And then next one is 2, -3. That's somewhere here. 3, -1. That's here. And 4, 3. That's here. And now you're going to draw a smooth curved line. Remember, it should touch all the points. Okay. You're going to draw a smooth curved line like this. Okay. Smooth curved line. Remember, this should go a little at the bottom, by the way, this point here. So we're gonna, let me just draw that correctly. somewhere here roughly. This is just a rough sketch how it should look like. This should actually go like this, and yeah, to go like that. And then you're gonna label the equation y equals x squared minus 3x minus 1, since that's the equation given to us. Now here we have drawn the graph, so that's good, for the values ranging from -2 to 4. Okay, look at the ranges. Now use the graph to estimate the turning point of the graph. Now the turning point of this graph is going to be the point at which the graph turns around. So it's somewhere going to be here. It's actually going to be here. This is going to be your turning point of the graph if you take the symmetry, and this is going to be 1.5 in this case, since we know that 1 divided by 10 is 0.1, so 0.1 times 5, that's 1.5. And this is roughly here as -3.25 with calculation, okay? So we're going to just take all, now since they're asking us to find a turning point, we're going to give them the coordinates 1.5 comma -3.25. This is going to be your answer, okay? Now there's another way of finding out the turning point. Now if you want, like without the graph, how do you find out the turning point is you're going to use the method called completing the square. Completing the square method will help you find out the turning point. It is a very good method that you can use. There's a nice little formula that you can use. Here is this is a method I use, but there are other methods to solving it, but the main method to find out turning point is by completing the square. This really helps when finding out the turning points, and this is a method to do this as well, okay? You'll be getting the exact same things. Okay, now we can see that there's a repeat of the question. Okay, let's just plot this. When you substitute all the x values, you should be getting 10, 3, -2, -5, -6, -6, -5, -2. And when you plot all the points, so let's just plot all the points, -3, 10. That's here, -2, 3. That's somewhere. Okay. We have to look where this is accurately. So we know that's 5 divided by 10, so that's 0.5. 0.5 times that's roughly, if you look on the graph, 6 squares above. So just trying to draw this accurately. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's somewhere here. -1, 2. It's going to be roughly 4 squares. So 1, 2, 3, 4 squares here. 0.5. 1, -6 is going to be roughly 2 squares from here. 2, -5. 3, -2. It's roughly 4 squares from here, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4 squares. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember to draw this really carefully when dealing with these type of questions. So it's going to be like this. You're just going to draw a smooth curved line. Remember, always it should be smooth curved line, and always label the graph as y equals x squared minus 2x minus 5. Okay, whatever equation is given to you in the question, just label it as it is. Use the estimate to find out the solution of this graph. Since there's only one solution here given to us, the coordinates here, this is roughly -1.4 comma 0. Okay, you should use the graph to find it out in this case. So only the x value, so it's 1.4. Remember, there's another proper way of finding out the value. Okay, the proper way of doing this is by factorizing. Remember to use the factorizing method if you want to find out the proper solution, x value. Okay, just to confirm it, this is doing it without the graph. Okay, now question number 7, this is the final question. Okay, now here when you substitute all the points, you should be getting -8, 0, 6, 10, 12, 12, and 10. Okay, now we're going to plot the points. -1, 8. So it's roughly how many squares? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares. So it's negative. If you zoom in, it should be roughly 6 squares from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it should be roughly there. Negative 1 comma 8, 0 comma 0, 1 comma 6 should be 2 squares above. 2 comma 10, 3 comma 12, 3 comma 12 should be roughly 4 squares from here. So 3 comma 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 comma 12, 4 comma 12, 5 comma 10. Now this is a different shape, so you're just going to draw a smooth curved line connecting all the points like this. Okay, smooth. Remember, it should be very smooth, curved, and remember, it should be curved line. Okay, like this. Okay, and you're going to label the equation y equals 7x minus x squared. Okay, on the graph you have drawn it. Next part, used to estimate the turning point. Here it is the turning point of the graph. Remember to use completing the square method, but it will be roughly somewhere here. So this is 3.5, and if you read it on the y value, it should be 12.5. But remember to use the completing the square method to get the most accurate turning points. Okay, so it's 3.5 comma 12.5. This is going to be a turning point. Now find the solutions to this equation. Remember, you can factorize this. Let's factorize this. You can either do this by finding out the turning points here. Since the graph is given to us, find out where the graph touches the x-axis. So x is 0, somewhere here. So what you're going to do is you're going to factorize this if you want to get the proper value. So since there are two x's, so x 7 minus x equals 0. X equals 0, 7 minus x equals 0. What we've done here is we just factorized this quadratic expression. There's a better way of doing this, actually. So negative x equals negative 7. The negatives cancel out, so x equals 7. So the values are x equals 0 and x equals 7. This is done without using the graph, but yeah, we can see that there are certain values that we have to find. Okay? Actually, I would advise, this seems to be the end of all the questions. One best tip, what I would say is, always use factorizing, okay? Even if the graph is provided to you, always factorize the quadratic expression and then use that to find out the x values, because that is a more safer method to do, because it gives you the most accurate results as well, okay? So this seems to be the end of all the questions. If you guys have enjoyed the video, please do like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It really helps a lot. And do comment below on what your thoughts are about this video. And yeah, I think that's it. Alright, bye guys.